Every year, on the last night of Halloween, something strange happens to a neighborhood. Porch lights blaze gold instead of white. Strangers knock on doors and are welcomed. Children walk alone in the dark, and no one thinks twice. It is the one night when fear is dressed up, laughed at, turned into a game. And that, more than anything else, is what makes it dangerous. Think about it. A person in a mask is not suspicious tonight. They are festive. A stranger lingering at the edge of a yard is not a threat. They are in character. The costume that hides a child's face from the cold also hides an adult's face from recognition. The crowd that fills the sidewalks doesn't just offer safety in numbers, it offers cover. A predator does not need to hide on Halloween. He is invited to blend in. And the guard we usually keep, that quiet animal instinct that tightens in our chest when we walk down an unlit street, goes soft. We tell ourselves, everyone is out tonight. Someone will see. Someone will help. We trade vigilance for the comfort of company, and we don't notice that the crowd thins block by block, porch light by porch light, until we are the only two people left on the street. This is where her story begins. She was 17, walking home from a party 3 streets over. Her costume, a pair of devil horns, nothing more dramatic than that, still on because it was easier than carrying it. The night was loud behind her and quiet ahead. She didn't notice him at first. Why would she? He was just another shape in a hoodie, drifting along the far sidewalk, the kind of figure that on any other night might have made her cross the street. But tonight, there were a dozen shapes like him. Tonight, shapes like him were the point. It was 3 blocks before she heard it. Footsteps behind her, matching her pace almost exactly. She told herself it was an echo. Old houses do that. Sound bounces strange off brick and hedgerow. She slowed down to test it. The footsteps slowed too. She sped up. They sped up. That was the moment the night changed shape. Not a sudden jump scare, not a scream in the dark, just a small, sick certainty settling into her stomach, the kind that doesn't announce itself, it just arrives. This was not an echo. This was rhythm. This was someone keeping time with her, deliberately, the way a predator matches the gait of something it's already decided to take. She turned down a side street to test it further, telling herself she was being paranoid even as her hands started to shake. The footsteps turned too, a beat behind her, always a beat behind, close enough to be intentional, far enough to deny it if she turned around. She cut through the gap between 2 houses, the one she used to take as a shortcut when she was a kid, when shortcuts still felt safe. The footsteps followed her through the gap. That was when she understood this wasn't her shortcut anymore. It was a trap being built in real time, turn by turn, and every choice she made to lose him was a choice he had already anticipated because he'd been mapping this route long before tonight. The alleys she knew as an escape, he knew as a funnel. The maze of backyards and fence lines that had always meant home is close now meant something else entirely. Somewhere behind a jack-o'-lantern's dying candle, a dog barked once and went silent. She was 3 streets from her front door, and for the first time in her life, 3 streets felt like miles. I still think about that night more than I'd like to admit. It was Halloween, and I hadn't meant to fall behind. That's the thing about groups on Halloween night. They move like a living thing, swelling at candy bowls, thinning at crosswalks. And somewhere in that swelling and thinning, I lost mine. 1 second, I was laughing at a joke my friend made about a lawn skeleton wearing sunglasses. The next, I turned to repeat it, and there was no one there to hear it. The street I was standing on wasn't the main strip anymore. It was a cul-de-sac, the kind builders designed to feel cozy, enclosed, safe, circular, contained. But contained means something different once you're alone in it. The houses still wore their decorations, a skeleton hanging limp from a tree, a fog machine hissing white mist across a lawn no one was standing on, a scarecrow slumped against a mailbox with a grin stitched too wide, all of it built to be charming with a crowd around it. Without the crowd, it was just theater with no audience, and I was standing in the middle of the stage. I told myself I'd just walk to the nearest lit house and ask to use a phone. That felt like the reasonable thing, the adult thing. I picked the porch with the warmest light and started up the walkway, my own footsteps unnervingly loud against the quiet. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder, glancing over my shoulder out of habit more than fear, and told myself it was nothing when I saw a shape near the mailbox at the end of the street that hadn't been there a moment before. That was when the first door didn't open. I moved to the next house. Same porch light glow, same pumpkin grin, same silence behind the door. I told myself people just weren't answering because it was late, because they'd run out of candy, because 100 boring reasons, and I kept walking, kept knocking, kept finding locked doors and dark windows behind decorations that suddenly felt less festive and more like a mask over something hollow. Every house on that cul-de-sac was the same, lit up, empty, uncaring. The porch lights didn't know I needed them. The pumpkins kept smiling their carved smiles no matter what was happening 20 feet away in the dark. There's a specific sinking horror in realizing that the things built to look welcoming won't save you, that warmth can be entirely decorative. I turned to find another way out of the circle. The shape by the mailbox was gone. For one full breath, I let myself believe that meant I was safe. Then I heard it. Not footsteps this time, closer than that. Breathing, slow, deliberate, matched to mine, coming from somewhere just behind my shoulder, close enough that I felt the shift of air before I felt anything else. I'd spent the last 5 minutes so focused on the doors, on the porches, on the useless glowing windows, that I never once turned around to check what was gaining on me while I knocked. It wasn't behind me anymore. I could feel it. Not a sound, not a shadow, but a presence, close enough to share the same small pocket of night air, close enough that whatever was behind that mask didn't need to run, didn't need to hurry, didn't need to do anything but wait. The fog machine hissed. The scarecrow kept smiling. Every Halloween has its uniform. The year it happened to me, it was the plague doctor. That long black coat, that beaked leather mask, that wide-brimmed hat pulled low. By 9 o'clock, I'd counted at least 6 of them on my own street alone. Teenagers wore it as a joke. A dad 3 houses down wore it while handing out candy. It was, without question, the most common costume of the night. Which is exactly why it worked. A predator doesn't need to be invisible on Halloween. He only needs to be unremarkable. And nothing is more unremarkable than the costume everyone else is already wearing. I would learn later that this was never an accident, that the coat, the mask, the hat had been chosen with the same care a hunter gives to camouflage, not to stand out, to disappear into the pattern of the night itself. I noticed him the way you notice wallpaper, present, unthreatening, easy to walk past. He was behind me at the crosswalk. He was near me at the corner store where I stopped for water. He was, I would realize far too late, always roughly the same distance away, holding position the way something patient holds position, waiting for the crowd to thin. And the crowd did thin. It always does. Block by block, the trick-or-treaters peeled off toward their own front doors, porch lights clicking off behind them one by one, until the wide, noisy street I'd started on had narrowed into something quieter, darker, and almost entirely mine. Almost. The plague doctor was still there. Not rushing, not hiding, just closing the distance in small, unhurried increments, the way a shadow lengthens as the sun goes down, so slowly you don't notice until suddenly you're standing in the dark. I sped up, he sped up. I told myself it was coincidence, that a dozen people were probably walking this same route home, that the beaked mask behind me was someone's harmless older brother. I told myself that right up until the moment he stopped pretending. The slow follow ended in a single heartbeat. 1 second there was distance between us, a careful, deniable gap he could always explain away. The next, that gap was gone, and any pretense that this had ever been a coincidence. I heard the shift in his footsteps before I understood it, the long stride breaking into a run. I ran. Not the controlled jog of someone testing a theory, a full, desperate sprint, my costume snagging on nothing, my lungs burning in the cold air, every streetlight a small false promise of safety that blurred past before it could mean anything. Behind me, the coat flapped like something with wings. The mask never made a sound. That was almost worse than if it had screamed. I didn't know those streets well enough to outthink him. I only knew to keep moving, to aim for noise, for light, for anywhere a stranger might still be standing on a porch with a bowl of candy in their hands. My story isn't unique. That's the part that should unsettle you most. Somewhere tonight, on some ordinary street, someone is walking home in a costume everyone recognizes, and someone else is counting on exactly that. The night doesn't care how careful you are. It only asks whether you notice the distance closing before it's already gone.